Hey, you've made it to the podcast Recovery Captured, hosted by me, Shannon Louise, a certified recovery coach and self-verified addict. Join me on my journey through my recovery from mind-altering substances, eating disorders, depression, and much, much more. During this podcast, you'll hear my personal experience, thoughts, and opinions, as well as my guests' stories through their own recovery. I hope that you're able to take something away from this podcast and use it as a tool to help you see that your story is picture perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Josh, for joining me today on the podcast. Super stoked to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. I would like to know the goods. What are you in recovery for? How long have you been in recovery? And give us a fun fact about you.
So I'm in recovery from alcohol. It's been a little over a year, 94 days. And a fun fact, since it's a recovery thing, I'll base it off of that. I actually miss the taste of alcohol in certain aspects. But I know that it's kind of like the issues that, let's say, an obese person has with certain kinds of foods. Mm-hmm. You know, you think that you can take a little bit, but you can't. And it just turns into something big because it's not the taste that you're looking for. It's actually the drive of all of the shit that alcohol does to you. So I miss the taste of alcohol is my fun fact.
Okay. It's, we say it in the rooms, 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough.
Yes.
Now, do you ever try to get down with the non-alcoholic booze?
I have tried, the non-alcoholic ciders, mm-hmm. and they taste like a cider. Like it's like apple juice, but you know, the flair isn't there. Mm-hmm. I've tried I think it's like a brand of an NA beer, like stouts and IPAs and things like that, and it's not the same. So like once I do, like I have like the 0% Heinekens every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you have that, does it like trigger you? Do you want to like get drunk after?
No, because I know what they are. So I have one and then I just put them away. So for me, not so consuming it or having that flavor there makes me want to not drink it anymore because I know that there's no alcohol to it. I'm not going to get that mind-altering effect, I guess you can call it. Mm-hmm. But for kind of like kicking that craving, I think that it's been helpful. Because you drink one and it's like, well, that's a lot of calories, and you start thinking about all the other things. It's like drinking a full flavored soda. Mm-hmm. Like you're not getting any kind of benefit out of it other than you're kicking it, or you're curing a craving that is going to do nothing for you health-wise.
Right.
So it's very, very rare that I do that, but I have done it. Yes.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it personally. I wouldn't, because I never liked the taste of booze. I absolutely think it's disgusting. And like, if I were to drink something like that, I would want to have that effect, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It just sounds gross to me. personal, but yeah, you know, I like the fun fact. I think that's very interesting. Now give us a little bit of background as to how you got to where you are today.
So 2 months out of high school, 2004, I joined the Army, with active duty for almost 15 years. Left the Army, moved to Vermont with the hopes of doing one job, was doing another job, and didn't want to go to the other job, so I stayed where I was at. And then, a couple of other jobs here and there. And now I'm in a really good job, a really good setup. I left my house from the marriage the 1st of January 21. So I've been on my own, splitting times with the kids, all those things for the last 13 months now. And I'll be honest with you, changing. So I've always wanted to quit drinking, the remorseful cycles. You can relate it to the cycle of violence when it comes to like a domestic violence situation. You've got the honeymoon phase, and then you've got like the buildup, and then you've got the explosion. So when you're looking at, for me, for the cycle of drinking was something happened, or I felt like shit, hangovers, whatever the case was, or I spent $800 in a week because I buy a fifth of drink every week, or every night. I mean, not every week, every night. So just going through all those different things, all those different changes, changing my environment made it so much easier, whether it was the stress or whatever it was, the routine that I had when I would come home from work after I got alcohol, and then we would drink, and then, all of these different things, that none of that happens anymore because I've changed my environment. I've changed my routine. So it made it a lot easier to get out of that need for alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I've been drinking. I mean, I started drinking probably when I was like 15, here and there. And then you start, I mean, when I say drinking, it was like Bacardi and Zimas and shit like that, so like, but it's the gateway, it's the gateway to something more. And then it becomes more, and then it becomes more, and then it just becomes a habit. Mm-hmm. Or I could pound a thing of Jameson, a big bottle of Jameson. I could drink half of it straight on the rocks and get up and go to work the next day like it was nothing. Like, that is not healthy. And I did that up until January 8th of last year. There was probably like a year or two because of deployments or training and stuff cumulatively that all of this worked out. But that's the most saving grace thing for me, I think, when it came to making the recovery as easy as it has been for me, or I won't say easy, as the least amount of pain as possible. Mm-hmm. Is getting out of the house, changing the scenarios, changing the narrative of what it is that I want to do in life. And it came with so much more self-improvement or self-help kind of thought processes on how I, handle my life in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, were drugs ever in the mix of it all, or was it just strictly alcohol?
No, it was strictly alcohol. And, military has a culture that you hang out, you drink, and when I was a drill sergeant from 2014 to 2016. So we train 200 trainees at a time for 17 weeks straight. Yeah. And in that time, you've got small breaks, you've got 4-day weekends, 3-day weekends. But at a certain point, you can kind of be a little bit more laxed when you get into the later phases. And that's when we would start drinking, we would start barbecuing and have all these family things. And it was a great atmosphere, but it was all centered around just getting as shitty drunk as we possibly could. Mm-hmm. And I got to go to work the next day, and I wake up and I've got road rash from a rug burn on my forehead where I blacked out on the couch, fell forward onto the floor, got a rug burn, and then just started vomiting and ruined a carpet, or I wake up at somebody's house at 3:00 in the morning and after the Super Bowl to find out that I sat on a kid and was just completely just stupid all night. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. And it's like, looking back on it, like, what the fuck was I doing?
Now, was this drinking affecting your marriage?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my ex-wife and I, like, we both collectively drank together, and I won't tell her side of the story, but, kind of where it matches up to us is, yeah, we drank a lot together and she was there with us. But it did start to develop issues between us where I was drinking too much or she was drinking too much, or we just weren't happy because of the way that things were going. But I mean, I can remember many of Thanksgivings where, she'd be cooking and I would just get shit-faced drunk and black out on the couch until she's done, and then by the time dinner came around, like all I did was lay down and be drunk all day. Like that is not something that the kids should remember holiday about. And I'm not big like on the consumer like holiday, like, oh my God, it's Thanksgiving and it has to be perfect. It's just having the kids together, having a good time, and them seeing dad like that was nothing that I wanted to be part of.
Were they affected by it at all?
Yeah. I mean, they definitely saw it, and especially as the marriage kind of drew closer to an end, and things kind of spiked up and down, left and right about how things were going. Alcohol being involved was definitely something that the kids noticed, which is also something that I'm just like, I can't be part of them seeing this person all the time. So like my honesty, my trustworthiness, like all those things are so crucial. And it is down to like the most minuscule task that I try to keep accountability on and have ownership on of things.
So what brought you to getting sober?
So this is the tough part. So as my life kind of started to go from bad to worse, I was unemployed, started a lawn care business. This was all during the whole COVID thing. So the kids were home. They were doing their remote learning and I was taking care of them. My ex-wife was working full-time at the time. So that was kind of took on that responsibility. But then I went to my lawn care business, and between that and just the drinking and just everything kind of was coming to the start of a downward spiral. I myself took it upon myself to be not faithful in my marriage. And that was a huge changing point. Obviously it preceded the divorce. Some other things happened in that time, but I got arrested for DUI because I was drinking to go see somebody. And what I was going to do, I don't know what was going to happen, whether it was just talking to this guy or talking to, fighting him, or, I mean, there were guns involved at one point, but since before I left and got arrested, I got rid of the guns. So that it was bad. Like it was just like this huge shitty storm that turned into this huge fucking down spiral. Where I was, just a few years ago, I was almost to a promotion point. If I stayed in the military, I could be so much more. And then just look at me now. Like I'm just the shithead that got out of the army and got arrested because he's a fucking drunk. I was a liar. I wasn't a good person. But I thought that I was, and that was the problem. I had this arrogance about me from being in the military. I was good at what I did. I care about soldiers, and to this day, I still, I work with the military now. I have friends who were former military, work for the military, still in, whatever the case is. And we have these great conversations, and we have all these pieces where we can kind of communicate. And I have friends who are sober and things like that, but I just was not the person that I wanted to be or that I needed to be for my family, for my kids. And I was just fucking done with it. And of course, legal problems definitely help push that. And I had some moments there where I lapsed, and that's why once I left the house, started here, when I just got in my mind, like, okay, this is the day. Like, this is when I say I'm done. So it could have been more, it could be less. But that was the day that I decided that this is over.
They always say changing people, places, and things.
Yeah.
I know for me, that was crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my good friend back in Missouri, he had the same kind of situation, where divorce came in and just his whole, I won't say his whole life, but for many, many years, alcohol was his thing. And he was there when we were drill sergeants. So he was there as a spouse partying with us and being involved. And we were always doing these things. So he's a couple years sober. So he's been like my go-to guy. He didn't have anybody. He did everything on his own. I helped him when I could, when I knew what was going on, but I couldn't do things on my own anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I've tried to do. And I just needed help, and I had a couple of good friends from the military. One was a heavier drinker than I am, and he's been sober almost as long as I have been. So we have this military camaraderie. We have this brotherhood that we've had for years. That's really been strengthened by the sobriety. We've got another couple friends that we're not really recruiting, but we're giving our stories, kind of like this, and putting ourselves out there, being vulnerable, so that if somebody is struggling with something, whether it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's food, it's candy, whatever the addiction is, just giving your side of things could help somebody in some small way.
Absolutely. Did the drinking ever affect your performance in the Army?
Honestly, no. And I say that because every morning as soldiers, especially in the training environments, or when you're in a leadership role, your morning starts off with PT. So even if you're drunk and you're going to PT, like, you're going to run it out of yourself. So you're going to have those times where you can go get it out of your system before you actually have to go and do things. Could you smell it on me? Probably. But
yeah, you're sweating.
Most of us that were there were drunk still because we were partying together, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I don't really give a fuck. I know that on a good day, I can only do so much. We're running the alpha group, so we're running the fastest of the fast trainees, right? I can only do so much, but my buddy, he can run the shit out of these kids. So I'll take them drunk as fast as I can, as far as I can, and then I become the straggler control while he's out there running his ass off because he's still drunk and he can run naturally as it is. Those are the things that professional drunks in professional settings do to help each other out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's not the right way to do things, but
it's how it happened, though. Now, once you left the divorce and you moved into your new place, you decided to get sober. Did you go to rehab or in outpatient programming or anything like that?
So when I was in the military, I sought help. I actually went to a military style or a military program that they had for, it's called ASAP, Army Substance Abuse Program. And they deal with everything: alcohol, drugs, prescription medications, things like that. It's a drug testing program. It's how to help someone who's struggling, or it's you got in trouble, here's your punishment kind of thing. Like most places, you get out of it what you put into it. Mm-hmm. So I've done that, and I've done some local, I guess you call them group style sessions and gatherings or get-togethers, whatever you want to call them. But I mean, essentially, for me, that didn't help. Being in a large, group setting like that, I'm more of a give me the tools and let me figure it out kind of thing. So I mean, I've bought books and I've listened to podcasts and I've gone through social media and seeing celebrities and just regular ass people. There's a couple of social media pages that are really good about I don't want to say broadcasting, congratulating and putting good light on addicts who were way, way, way beyond the downward spiral that I had, and that was their rock bottom. But they made the change, 5-6 years. I mean, so I see some on there that are just a couple years old, but they're kicking heroin and meth and shit like that. And that was the other thing too, was that when I was in these meetings or in these groups or in these discussions, I just drank a lot. So to me, it wasn't that bad. And then I see other people there and I'm like, I don't deserve to be here because I'm trying to help myself, but I'm not going to fail if I'm not here. But these brothers and sisters, I guess it would be a better way of calling them, because we're all struggling together. But some of the things that they talk about, and I'm just like, that is so much worse than what I have. I shouldn't be complaining. I need to clean my shit up. You know what I mean? Because it could be worse. I could be out there stealing and selling whatever to make a couple bucks so that I can go buy heroin or meth or alcohol or whatever the case is. Just not a good thing for me in those big settings. So I stayed away from them. And I've just kind of been navigating it in my own way.
So when you mentioned you're in this group, you're hearing the worst of the worst from them, and you're like, that's not even close to where I was at. Did that make you ever think that see, I'm not that bad. I could go back out. I can handle it. See, I never ended up in their shoes. Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't that, okay, I'm not as low as them, so I can keep going. It was more of for me to be here and to give my story to people who have lost companies, houses, families because of drugs. It almost felt like I was a suburban, wealthy person trying to go into the inner city and make it. You know what I mean? I struggled, because I didn't have a cell phone until I was 15 or some stupid shit like that, where you've got people from the inner city who are struggling to get through, to have heat in their homes and things like that. So I can't complain about my situation when their situation is a lot worse. Why should I be here giving up time that I don't necessarily need? I don't feel like I need it right now. So the time that I'm using could be better spent with somebody who doesn't have things because they've lost it all. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that first world problems complaining about things to a third world problem, or a third world habit. What do you want to call them? Resident, somebody from a third world country, and things like that. So I just didn't feel like I was bad enough in a way. So I joke about it. I took my bullshit and I went somewhere else. But what I did was, for me, I let somebody who really, really, really needed it be there to get that little bit of talking time that they may have needed that could have saved their life, saved their marriage, saved their company, saved something. That's kind of where my thought process was on that.
Yeah. So you were able to do a lot of it by yourself, a lot of self-help books, and kind of paving the path for yourself.
Yes. I'm a very outgoing, extroverted kind of person. So I have a lot of friends that I talk to that know that I have issues with alcohol, and most anybody knows that at this point. But I do my best to give my story to people and just kind of put it out there, but not be so woe is me, I guess you could say. The other part of it too. I don't want sympathy from people. I don't want people to, and mind you, I don't give a fuck what people think. But the message that I want to deliver is always just that I'm here to help, that I'm going to give my story or just put a little bit of myself out there so that if one person sees it, that's a friend of mine, or that likes it and a friend of a friend, and they see that and they reach out, it could save somebody's life, or it could save them from a catastrophe. And that's kind of what I do from my own little small foxhole of my life, I guess.
It just sounds like you're being of service.
I try to do my best to do that. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge part of giving back. Once you know something, you might as well share it if you've been so successful with it.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too that I'll say is I did a lot, and I did a lot of soul searching and trying to put pieces together. But again, it's the people that I surrounded myself with at the time. A really good friend of mine, she made it a point to make sure that she knew that I was supported. This person still drank, but I won't drink around you. Or if I want to have a drink, then we'll discuss it, things like that. And I really appreciate that. But there was so much more to it than that, because it was at the time when the divorce was still fresh and the paperwork was there, and there was a lot of animosity between my ex and I. And normally I would have been an asshole. I would have been really bad and just really shitty towards her, and it would have done nothing to help the situation. So again, the strong, helpful friends that I've put in my life helped me to be a better person, and how to handle when somebody's not being so helpful or cooperative about things, or normally you just want to tell them to fuck off or call them names or things like that. It's looking at it from another perspective of, okay, well, kill them with kindness, be nice, keep making the effort. And if it doesn't work, then you know that you've tried everything that you can do to be in that person's life for whatever reason. So I did a lot on my own, but I would not have been able to be as thorough and solid with my recovery if I didn't have the friends to help me through ways that I used to do things. The old way didn't work, so it's on us to do what we got to do to survive.
Right. So as you have supported or surrounded yourself with these supportive friends, did you walk away from the other people that you were actively drinking with? Not saying like you kicked them out of your life, but your day-to-day activities weren't spent around these people anymore? Or did you still include them? I mean, I know that you worked with a lot of them, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the joys about the military, you're only at a location for the most part, you're in a location for 3 years, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on where you're at. And then you go to a new job or you go to a new duty station. So you're constantly moving around. Well, the guys that I was drill sergeants with, we ended up all in Colorado together. So we kind of did the same thing when we were there. Not as often, but still was there. So it's very difficult to get yourself out of a bad situation sometimes in the military, because when it comes to alcohol, because every soldier, airman, Marine out there, for the most part, like probably a staggering amount of people drink, some to excess, every day. So since I've been in Vermont now, the friends that I had were from a previous job, and when we were working together, we hung out, had the alcohol stuff, drinking, things like that. But just at a certain point, everything just kind of faded away and tapered away. So the people that I hang out with now, they don't drink, or if they do drink, it's not a way that's like excessive and becomes obnoxious. Because I can be around alcohol, I can be around people that are drinking, but at a certain point, I will detach myself from the situation when people get obnoxious, or when people are just drinking too much, or I just feel like I'm going to partake just because it's all there. Then I got to go.
Right. You know your limit.
Yeah. And people, I preface that, and I give that as much as I can, just to make sure that people know, like, if I say I'm leaving, and this is why, you can either come or you can stay.
It's always a nice way to have like your own out. I've always been told, at least in earlier sobriety, now I'm totally fine to be around all that. But in early sobriety, if you're going to an event, always have an exit plan, right? We have these certain steps that we need to have in place so we feel safe. I'm going to take my own car. I'm going to tell my mentor that I'm going to this certain party, and I'm going to call them if something comes up. I'm going to let them know that I'm leaving or whatever. And then I'll have another backup friend that, hey, I'm leaving, I'm feeling triggered or whatever. And then knowing that I could go to, a meeting after or whatever, always having that game plan so you can keep yourself safe and sane, because being around obnoxious drunk people can kind of be overwhelming.
Yeah. Like, Wednesday, I went to a concert down at Higher Ground. I had just had shoulder surgery last week, so I'm in a sling. I was in a sling then, but it was a band that I really wanted to see. I know there's going to be drinking, but I'm there by myself, and I know how to handle whatever cravings or whatever issues that I have. So, I mean, I had a pretty good vantage point to the stage, but my back was right where the bar was. So everybody that wants a drink that's on this side of the club or this side of the venue, they're going to come over here for drinks. But being there, it didn't bother me. Like, I don't know. It's when I'm there, I all I cared about was the music and the environment, and as the night went on, people got more and more drunk, but they weren't being obnoxious. They were having fun. And that was the point. So it's like, I'm not going to impede on somebody else. Like, get away from me. Like, I can't be by the drinks, or I can't be there because of drinks. Maybe early on, it wouldn't have been that easy. But that was my first concert sober, solo, actually. I usually go with somebody else, but like, I just went by myself. I was sober, and I didn't have any issues from the alcohol and being there and people spilling drinks and drinking. It was just, everybody's having a good time, and it was fine. But I did know that if I felt something, I would move to a different spot of the venue, and if it was still something that was there, then I would leave. But my mind was on just rocking out because it was an amazing concert.
Okay, don't be shy. Who was it?
So it was Killswitch Engage was the headline.
Okay.
August Burns Red was the middle, and then the entry one was Light the Torch. So it's heavy metal. Real quick, I'll try to make it quick as possible because I love music. So music has been something that's huge for me through everything, like from it being a child, so like right now, like music is my everything. And I find so much solace and so much comfort and relatability to music, and I'm a heavy metal fan. People dog on heavy metal because it's screaming and it's this and it's crazy. But I don't think people understand, like, it's just the same. It's the same kind of music. It's just a different delivery method. It's not Taylor Swift out here singing about Blank Space, although I Prevail is another good band, and they did a cover of Blank Space, and it was amazing. But it's not like that. It's just a different delivery. And they talk about depression, about suicide, about being in a situation that you can't get out of, and you just don't know how to feel, how to get out of it, and just being able to express it through music or hear it through music has been huge for me. So the lead singer of Killswitch Engage used to be a guy named Howard Jones. He left a while back, and he started this new band, which was Light the Torch. So he's out there to start the show. The last 3 songs of the concert, he comes back out and sings with Killswitch Engage, which is his original band. I mean, it's giving me goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Because for me, like 2008, 2009 is when I first started listening to him. And I don't know, I just feel like this relatability when I go to these concerts and just feeling it. And I'm still in my feels about the concert. And it was just so great because I did it by myself. I did it sober, and I had no issues. And it's so freeing, and it's so empowering is a better word, I think, to call it.
No, I love how we can connect on that level. I'm not really heavy metal, but like the heavy I can get is like Clutch. I love Clutch. But my favorite band is Ripe. And I have been to so many it's like a underground funk band.
Okay.
But I've been to so many concerts of theirs, and it just puts me in such a mood, and the atmosphere and the vibe is amazing. And music as a whole has literally saved my life. If I am in a rut, having a bad day, just in my feels, especially Ripe, putting Ripe on will totally change my mood. And, in early sobriety, I couldn't go to concerts because I associated it with drinking and using drugs, because like going to concerts was my jam. And that's what we did. And so in my early sobriety, I couldn't go. And then I learned that you can go to any place you want if there's a purpose. So then I finally realized that, like, oh, hey, I can go to concerts and not drink because I'm going to a concert to enjoy this band that I love. And in turn, you're having fun, you're feeling the music. It's an own high of itself from my personal experience. And it's like, you can go to any place you want if there's purpose behind it. And I feel like you finally got to experience that on your own at this concert last week.
Yeah. And so sobriety for me has not just been like kicking, sobriety. It's getting my life on track the way that I want it. So I like I mentioned earlier, I read a book, right? A book's called Extreme Ownership. And it was written by 2 former Navy SEALs. It has you can buy like a workbook that goes with it. And they talk about, again, they're written by SEALs, so it's got a big military, and they talk about military operations that they did in the early part of Iraq, and how things went well and how things went bad. And when things went bad, something failed, the people that were in charge of the operation, the mission that they were doing, took responsibility for it. This is what happened, and this is how we're going to fix it, and it's on me. So those kind of things. So in reading that book and comprehending it and just trying to put it into my life, the ownership of whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, there's a pass or a fail or whatever the case is just owning it. So for me, if I spill the coffee and I didn't clean it up all the way, then I have this coffee ring on the floor or wherever. Unless I clean it up, it's not going to get clean. But I know that I did it and I admitted to it. If my kid did it and they didn't admit to it, then that's the ownership that I'm looking at. And it's down to the minuscule tasks that I go through every day. Whether it's with somebody else or it's with myself, with that personal accountability, and just knowing that this is not time to make a fallacy. This is not time to try to make an excuse for something. You did something wrong. It's embarrassing, whatever, but you just need to own it, and you need to be vocal about it. And it's actually worked out for me a lot better than I thought. Some really good friendships, some really good relationships that I've started, and then I've started to build with people, has been a lot of just, this is my story and I have nothing to hide. And if you really want to fact check me, just Google my name and you'll see what the fuck just happened. But essentially, like if you Google my name or you try to do like this background check on me and you find all this shit, you should hear that from me, not from the internet. And that's what I just want to make sure that whether it's being honest with somebody that I'm trying to start a relationship with, or that I'm trying to start a friendship with, or a job and with my boss, and just being honest with them, just getting that information out there and just being honest and open. And if you fuck up, own it.
Was it hard for you to own your fuck ups when you were drinking?
I didn't. I passed the blame, or I made up an excuse, or I just try to downplay it, because I could just, forget about it or move on because I'm going to do something stupid again this week because we're partying again this fucking week. So it's almost, it is impossible if you don't want to change it.
Right. I just want to do a plug for the Army and individuals that are serving our country. If they too find themselves in a situation like you did, addiction, alcoholism, whatever else, mental health issues, you mentioned SAPs, right?
So it's a program called ASAP.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Are there other avenues or other resources that soldiers could find and use to help them get sober?
Absolutely. But I do want to preface this. Everything that I say about things is my own opinion. Like I quote things a lot. So I quoted a Tupac song. I don't own the rights to this stuff. I don't want to get you in trouble on that part. So this is all my own personal experience, my own personal thoughts on things.
Yes, absolutely.
So the military as a whole, not just the Army, they have resources for you. The Army Substance Abuse Program is it is a policy, it's everywhere in the Army. They have to have it. Then they have like Military One Source. They have Army Community Services. They're organizations within the military where they bring in contractors who you can go and talk to if you have issues, where it's completely confidential. There's been this huge stigma for many, many, many years about mental health in the military. If I'm suicidal or if I have issues with my mental health, if I go tell somebody, I'll lose my security clearance or I'll lose my job or I'll have to change MOSs or get out of the Army, things like that. I think, based on my own experience, I think that there's still a stigma there, but it's drastically changed to, if you need help, you need to get help now, because you can't come back into the military. You can't come in the military if you've had any kind of mental health issues, which is an issue on itself. But if you have mental health, if you have substance abuse issues, you can talk to ASAP. You can talk to your doctor, where it stays more like a confidential thing, because people do still have that negative stigma of being able to talk about things and do things, but that's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to my command. And that's what the military as a whole has been trying to get rid of, is that stigma. So there are assets that we have within the military, but then every military installation that you go to is, for the most part, is near somewhat of a bigger city, right? So Fort Carson is in the middle of Colorado Springs. Fort Drum, you've got Watertown, New York. Fort Sill is in Lawton, Oklahoma. So there's some small ones, there's some larger ones, but there are assets at these locations where people can go, whether it's contracted through the military, MWR, or not MWR, excuse me, ACS, Army Community Services, or it's something off-site where somebody got out of the military and they're kind of in a situation like me, but they want to help people, so they have like a small service and veteran owned, things like that. And I think that if they need help, if somebody needs help and they don't know who to talk to, just really getting in and looking at the ACS, the ASAP, and trying to find the resources that help them the most. I mean, you can call the suicide hotline, you can call Army Community Service. They have a hotline where you can get plugged into all kinds of different things, tax services, whatever the case is. So there are programs there. There are nonprofits. There are for-profits all over the place that help people, especially military, because yes, we drink a lot. We have mental issues, and it's not all from war. People have issues from going on a 9-month deployment to Germany or spending a year in Qatar, things like that. Like, you're not going to always have those combat related issues, because life, not everything that's bad is related to combat. You have trauma outside of that.
I appreciate you giving all those resources, and I'll definitely leave some in the description box so other individuals can utilize those resources, because I think it's really helpful. I'm sure there's a lot of shame around getting help, and I'm sure there's a lot more shame around it when you're in active duty, because you might have fear. At least I would have fear of losing my position or just like being
Yeah.
looked down upon. So I definitely will list all those below so they could be utilized. I think those are great resources. And I didn't know they had all that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And then that's specific to the Army, but as a whole, those programs are service specific. So they each have like their own, but they do have their own. So that's definitely helpful.
For sure. Now, what do you do day to day to not pick up? Do you have like a little ritual or a routine that you do that helps you not pick up again?
Yeah, I cram so much shit into my day that I don't have time for anything else. I mean, essentially that's what it is. I work 50% of the time I have my kids. Before I hurt myself, I was in the gym all the time. But it really came down to I go to work, I come home, or I go to work, I go to the gym, I come home. I prepare myself for the next day as much as possible. And the least amount of downtime I have to, I guess in a way you can say, dwell on things or get the cravings for it. Just keeping busy, but there's just so much shit in my life. Trying to buy a house, I have the kids, I have one fucking hand that I can use. Just a lot of things. And again, this is that whole not being the woe is me, but this is my situation. It's not the worst. It's just shitty for me. I'm just, I guess, in a position that I can complain about it. But ultimately, that's what I try to do is just stay busy, get the things done that I need to get done. And if there's something that I need to put back into my life, then I will figure out a way to get it in there. Alcohol doesn't need to be in my life. It has no place, so it won't be there.
Do you still deal with cravings?
I do, actually. Like I said, I enjoy the taste of alcohol. So a good bourbon, a whiskey, an Irish whiskey, I genuinely enjoy the taste of those. A good IPA, a good ale, a good Bock, just all these different varieties. They're fucking good. The problem is what they do to you.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to eat a fucking cheesecake every day, but I don't want to be 600 pounds by next year. So, if you kind of equate those two together, they're both going to have the same negative effect on you. One will kill you faster. Or if you involve alcohol and you have those mental health issues, you're the one who kills yourself. Then what do? You know what I mean? So suicide has been a huge problem in my life. Friends, people that I know, colleagues, military, civilian, it's just all too common. And it's just a huge thing. And part of my downward spiral and all of my shit that happened after I got arrested and while I was still trying to come out of that drinking phase and really start my sobriety, I was right there. I had circles on my forehead from where I took the pistol after I got pissed off and scared that I couldn't kill myself. And I just hit my head and I had a bunch of circles on my forehead from the pistol, and then I just got rid of the rest of the rounds and I just sat there and cried. And I hadn't felt anything. I had not felt true fear, emotions, sadness, anything really in so long that it scared the fuck out of me. And I was just like, I kissed my kids on the forehead and I gave my now ex-wife a kiss and I grabbed my pistol off the top of the refrigerator and I left. Like I wasn't, she told me like, I didn't expect you to come home. Because I was just at that point where I was just like, I don't need to be here, but then I thought about it. And when I kind of finally settled back down, I realized that I have 4 fucking kids that depend on me. All those people in my life that I knew or knew of that committed suicide and took their own life, like, we don't know why. There's so many questions that will never be answered. And those families are left to struggle because their loved one is gone because of a choice that they made. And I didn't want to be that person who gave up on life because I had a shitty marriage and I did something stupid and I was a drunk. The kids don't deserve to suffer their entire lives because of some bullshit that I did. So I need to fix myself. And this is what the fuck I'm going to do to fix it.
It's so hard dealing with suicidal ideations because once you're in the grips of it and you're there and you're ready, nothing makes sense. Nothing, like a thought doesn't get past right where you are. You don't think about your family in that moment. You don't think about the future you could have or the individuals that have crossed your path or people that are right present in your life. You don't think of those people or those things. Like my dogs, my gosh, I couldn't imagine what they would do without me. You know what I mean? And it's just like in that heat of the moment, in that depression, in that suicidal ideation, it is really hard to get through to yourself how much damage could ensue if we acted upon it. And it's very hard, and it's nothing to take lightly, and just I don't know, it touches home for me with suicide, with personal things and people and stuff like that. So it's definitely a scary thing to have to even come face to face with and then know people that have done it.
Yeah. And the other part of it too is my job in the military was military police. And I worked as a cop here in Vermont for a year. So, what do you do as a cop? You respond to the shittiest of shitty or the dumbest of dumb calls. But essentially, if there's a suicide or there's a welfare check on somebody at the house because they haven't heard from in a couple of days, and then you show up and there's a body, whatever the case is, you deal with those things, so people drink for different reasons, whether it's the taste, whether it's they just drink to drink, whatever their prerogative is. Sometimes it's out of your control based on the things that you've been exposed to. So when it comes to suicide, you see, as a cop, you see a lot of things. You see a lot of death, but you see the suicides, and you still wonder, like, it's just there. And even if you don't have that personal connection to them, like, you're going to have those issues. So the mental health of, I don't really like to call them essential workers or first responders and things like that, but like your lifesavers, fire, EMS, police, volunteers, you're gonna see some shit. I wasn't even working one day, and I rolled on I-89, and this dude had wrecked his truck, and he was dead. Like, it wasn't a traumatic event for me per se at the time, and even now it's like I see it in my mind, and I remember being there and all those things, but like, I just don't have that personal connection where it affects me. But on my birthday that same year, I go to a double fatality car accident where they weren't wearing their seatbelts. And now you're like, oh shit, like, this is really bad. And you just see how it affects all the other people that are there. And just at some point, that is going to break somebody down where they make a choice of, how do I fight these demons? Drink? Do I seek counseling? Do I get medication? Or do I just let it ride? And there are so many things that you can do that won't help you at all if you don't want to help yourself. And it's such a problem for people who want to be helped, but they're so stubborn. They don't know that they're being stubborn sometimes. They just, I don't want the help. I don't want the help. I don't want the help. I'm good. I'm fine. There's just only so much you can do. And at a certain point, you just have to let people be who they are, what they are, and do your best to just manage the damage control at the end. You know what's going to happen. It's how do you, as the friend or as the confidant or as the sponsor or whatever, help that person out, or the mentor, whatever you want to call it, help them out.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in the grips of it all, it's so hard to ask for help, which I'm sure you've experienced, you know, for me too. And just seeing people struggle, it's so hard to ask for help. One, sometimes you don't even know how to ask for help in a certain situation. And two, you don't, like, your ego, right? Your ego is so big sometimes, and it's hard to get past that to even ask for help, or like, where do you ask for help, right? It's really challenging sometimes, you know, and then you become stubborn, or I can manage it, I'll be fine. And then one thing after another, now you're drinking even more. Now you're having even more suicidal ideations. Now you're, you know, it just spirals so quickly if not caught on to at an early stage.
So one thing that I've definitely looked at, you know, kind of going to your point here, is people may not know where to look, but there are, I guess you can call them rabbit holes. You know, if you find that one little spot, it will lead you to everything, you know. And I think with social media and anybody being able to create a group, you know, you can create a group for Franklin County, Vermont addiction support. You know what I mean? And then you start throwing these things out there, and people start liking things, and people start adding things, and it grows. And it takes that wildfire setup, and then, you know, would just grow. And it doesn't even have to be like, I'm going to go on here for therapy. It's just go on there for resources. You know, people can go on there and do things like that. And that would be good for rural Vermonters, especially who are in Eastern Franklin County, the Northeast Kingdom, Lamoille County, you know, pretty remote spots where it's going to take them 30-40 minutes to get to a St. Albans or to a Burlington, or, you know, even to like a Morrisville.
Yeah.
Like from, you know, Eden, Morrisville, just all these remote places where if they don't have access to a medical setup like Notch or UVM in their area, get on fucking Facebook and you can find something that's going to lead you to somewhere else. Then you can figure out how that would make you work. But I think I'm part of a group, Only Hams. I like pet pigs, right? So you just type in Only Hams, and it's all these people who have pet pigs. And they're just sharing their stories about their pigs. How do you get your pig to stop doing this? How do you get your pig to stop doing that? It's that situation, that setup, but for helping somebody with alcohol, with suicide, with depression, with anxiety, whatever the case is, that I think are ways for others to get that help that just don't know where to go or who to ask.
Social media is a godsend and, you know, a hellbreaker at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's like, even if I'm the resource, or if you're the resource, or if one of your other guests, you know, becomes a resource for somebody because somebody knows of that person or of me or whatever, well, I think I can relate more to this person's story, so I would, you know, talk to them about it.
Right.
This person. There were two things that I wanted to bring up in relation to alcohol here. One was the media, and two is rural Vermont. So when I was working as a police officer, I realized that the food insecurities, job insecurities, the housing insecurities in Vermont, especially outside of the major cities, and when I say that, I mean like St. Albans, Burlington area, things like that, they don't have resources for anything really, where they can get it in their local area, or at least like if the Northeast Kingdom were your spot, you could go here, or you could go here. Like here's like an outlet in between all these other places where you guys can do this. They don't have that. So the internet, the person to person or the peer to peer, the social media style stuff could be all that they have or all they have access to, because they may have the internet, but they may not have insurance, health insurance, or they can afford to go see somebody. So they would need the next best thing. And that's somebody in a stable position like yourself, that you can give good advice or good resources for them to latch onto, and bring in to help them and help their situation.
Exactly. Well, for me as a resource, like I provide free resources to individuals as a recovery coach, right? You can go to any Turning Point Center in Vermont. It's a recovery center. We have a local one in Burlington, but you can go to them and ask to speak with a recovery coach. It's pretty much a life coach, but I focus in recovery, right? It's a complete and utter free service to someone, right? And I just don't think people understand what is out there for services, even though we have Google at the top of our fingertips. I just don't think I don't know if broadcasted is the right word, but I just don't think it's pushed out enough, because you could be in the Northeast. I could be matched with someone in the Northeast Kingdom and be working out of Turning Point, and it's all remote. I do a lot of my coachees via Zoom, so that's like also a free resource that if you don't have health insurance, you can still at least talk to someone, and then therefore I can hook you up with other resources and stuff like that. So I definitely hear what you're saying. Absolutely.
Counselors and social workers who get paid other ways can give you the basic tools on getting started and getting to these assets, as opposed to getting straight into having insurance and being able to do that.
Exactly. I know it can be a huge issue. Insurance can be a huge issue for many people and a deterrent for many. If you don't have it, you're pretty much shit out of luck.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to use the internet,
free resources and the rabbit holes, if you will, of where I need to go and find these things.
Right.
So the other part was the media, right? So this last summer, I was kind of worried that, barbecues and being outside and working outside and things like that were going to spin some cravings and stuff. And it really didn't. So I made it through that, and then football season comes up. And then, football is just huge with drinking and barbecuing and tailgating and all this other shit, right? But for me, my fantasy football app, every fucking football game has a commercial on it that is Bud Light this, or Truly, or try these Bud Light mango pineapple Truly seltzer things. And it's just like, you're selling shit in a can again. It's just, they're using their money and their position in a shitty situation to exploit for money. And I know that, I don't know, however many years back, when they kicked the smoking off of TV, the ads, and then you start getting smoking out of restaurants and stuff, like that was a huge revolution for or a huge win for the revolution of the non-smokers, or I don't like to call them non-smokers, for the people who choose not to smoke. They're able to enjoy things without seeing that stuff. We don't have that luxury because everything involves drinking, sporting events, movies, TV, like just anywhere you look, there's just so much about drinking. Gas stations, they've got these big banners out there for a 30 pack of Bud Light for $18. Well, you might as well just go get a fucking case of water because the beer sucks. But it's things like that. Like, you don't really know how bad the advertising is until you don't want it or you can't have something anymore.
Or you don't. What?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, you also don't realize how much advertisement there is when you now don't eat it or drink, right? Advertisement sucks. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It does the job. It does what it's intended to do. Just like I said, people, places, and things got to change that when I first got sober. I literally changed the fucking channel when I got sober, when I saw that stuff, because it was a trigger. Like, oh yeah, it would be really nice to be on a boat, tubing, drinking, they glorify it. And that's not how it was. Then that's never how it is. It always ends in a blackout. So one, I have to change the channel because it's triggering to me. And then two, I have to remember where it brings me. It does not bring me on a boat. It does not bring me to, I fucking hate tubing. You know what I mean? It, like, that picture that they're painting, it's not what it is. And that's something that I always had to remind myself. So I feel like with the people, places, and things, I had to change certain things so I could avoid the advertisement as much as there's a lot of avoiding. And then eventually it just becomes like, okay, cool. Another ad. I don't even pay attention to it now, but definitely advertisement is all around us. And when we're getting on our rabbit holes on the internet trying to find resources, God forbid there's one or seven that pop up and trying to sell you on all this junk. But I hear you.
Yeah. And it's worse too, because the people that are doing the advertisements, it's the Trulies, the Bud Lights, like the bullshit, shitty, just like garbage stuff that, like, they want to push as much on you as they can because it's cheaper, and it's just like, here, drink all of our beers. But you need to drink this much to get something out of it because they suck that bad. Because you don't legitimately see like Modelo, I think, is like the biggest craft or like fancy beer that you see on there, like Stella Artois, like it's shit beer. You don't see like First Republic or 14 Star with a local advertisement. But it also could be because of our local laws, things like that. But when you don't know how much something is there until you don't want to see it, right? So like, if you were a diabetic and all you saw was fucking cheesecake ads, I love cheesecake, that's why I keep talking about cheesecake. If you're diabetic or you're obese or you're not able to eat these things, but you keep seeing it, it messes with your head. So it's not just alcohol, it's anybody that, if I don't want to see the Sarah McLachlan commercial when I'm watching TV about the animals, change the channel. And it's the same thing. Like, I get it. There's a purpose. Advertising wins generally, but it's like, I can't do it.
Yeah. It's hard to avoid. Yeah, it's hard to avoid sometimes.
And I think that's where people early in their sobriety, especially if they're very influenced by outside elements or outside factors, I think that TV advertising, social media ads on YouTube, shit like that people will just kind of falter into that rabbit hole if they let them. So definitely unplugging from things is something that could help somebody early on as well.
Oh, absolutely. Unplugging and getting out. For me, exercise is like the number one thing. And when I'm exercising, I'm definitely not watching anything. So there's no advertisements or anything. So yeah, definitely unplugging is, TikTok and those places can suck you in real quick.
Yes. And especially like if you're watching funny videos, and all the funny videos are people that are drunk and stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, it's cool and fun to do that, but
is it though?
How does that person feel? Like,
right.
Yeah, it's funny to look at it, and it's humorous for us, but how does that person feel about what they did, and do they have that remorse? And is this something that is preventing them from being helpful or preventing them from getting help or from being sober, because they're just a laughing stock of the internet right now because of this meme that gets out.
Mm-hmm.
So that social media, the internet, all those things they're multi-sided. It's not just one or two sides.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we need to make our own advertisement about recovery and how cool it is. So our word could get out a little bit more.
I would definitely be on that. Make our own little TV ad and put it on the news and the radio and all that stuff.
That's right. We'll figure out some way. But in the meantime, let's wrap it up. I feel like we talked about a lot of good resources, and I'm excited to put those in the show notes for others to use. But before we end, I have some rapid fire questions that aren't so rapid.
Okay.
What makes you happy?
Seeing my kids happy. Today was one. This is their weekend with their mom. Mom's got drill this week, or this weekend. So my 13-year-old wanted to go to the mall. So I took him to the mall, hung out, did a few things for an hour or so, and then brought him home. And then I get a text message when she's back home already. Thank you for taking my friend and I to the mall. I really appreciate it. It was fun. Like for me, driving him to the mall and hanging out for a couple hours meant nothing. It was no big deal for me, but it meant the world to her. That's what makes me happy. Things like that, when the kids are happy.
That's so special. Who's your biggest influence?
Can I say names?
That's up to you.
So we'll call him Umi. Okay. So my friend Umi, he's one that I talked about earlier, where he's been sober for a couple years.
Yep.
I want to get this on the podcast for you, for everybody, right? So when I was struggling at times, and I'd give him a call. He lives in Missouri. I live here in Vermont. So I'd give him a call, and I'd throw everything out there, and we'd start talking about it. And I'm like, dude, I just want to fucking drink, just get rid of all this bullshit and just not think about it anymore. And he told me this one time, and I've never forgot it. And I think about it all the goddamn time. What are you going to gain from it? And what are you going to lose from it? And it wasn't rhetorical. Like he legitimately asked me, like, what are you going to gain from this? And what are you going to lose from this? And the gain is I'm going to gain intoxication. And who knows where the fuck that's going to go. And I'm going to lose the promise to myself, the promise to my kids, that I promised them I would not drink anymore, ever. And thankfully, my ex-wife is on the same track. She's a week ahead of me on the sobriety train.
Nice. Good for her.
I definitely commend her, and I use her as a, so like the groundhog, or like the dog races, and they chase the rabbit, whatever. So I kind of use her week as like my motivation to keep going. Like she has me on a weekend sobriety, but I'm not going to let that. In 10 years is 10 years. The week isn't going to make a difference. You know what I mean? So just kind of use that as like motivation to kind of help me. Her fiance, they don't drink, so there's no alcohol there. There's no alcohol here. So in both of our lives, we've managed to kick alcohol out and never invite it back in. And that's something that the phrase of what are you going to gain, what are you going to lose, has just been something that stuck with me. And I talk to Umi all the time. We're constantly checking in with each other. And when we need help, we're there for each other, even being 18 hours away from each other, I'm
gonna say Umi sounds like a great person.
Oh, he's amazing.
Oh,
amazing guy.
If you could give one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't give up. And I know it's very cliche. But when I tell somebody don't give up, it doesn't mean like never quit. Like no matter what it is, you never fucking quit. It's more of, I had an issue, I had a situation that came up, whatever it is, and this is how I handled it. I didn't give up. I may not have made the best choice for me at the time or for the future, but I made a choice and I did what I thought was the best, and I didn't give up on it. And I didn't relapse, or I stopped myself during the relapse and I had a drink and I just realized it wasn't going to be there and I threw it away. It's like, so whatever it is, don't give up on yourself, because you have the tools, you have the resources out there, you have the strength within you to do it. It's just a matter of doing it. And that's for anything, for sobriety, for weight loss, for muscle gain, for starting a business, whatever it is, just don't give up on yourself. Believe in you, because you can do it.
I love it. What's one affirmation that you wish you could tell yourself more often?
You're doing okay. Because especially now, because I've had the surgery, and this last week I've just been irritable. I'm still trying to figure out why. I don't know if it was, because I had medications that I don't take. If it's just because I'm legitimately just overwhelmed, or if it's just because I can't use my other arm where I would be able to do a little bit more multitasking. That's the issue that I have right now.
Yep. Comes with the territory. We'll be over soon.
Definitely.
All right. The last thing. What is something you want to accomplish?
I want to be not known for, Josh Serna went and did this. I want to be known that anybody that's asked me for help, or that's come to me, or that has given me any kind of support where I'm going, that I can give them double, if not more, back. So Umi helping me, and my other buddy CJ, like, these guys helping me out, I want to be able to give them that same thing. And I have, we all help each other out. But if somebody reaches out to me tomorrow, I'm going to do everything that I can to find them resources, or to get them help, or to get them to somebody that I think can help them better, because I just don't know enough about this. You know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just, I want to be somebody that saved somebody from doing something that they shouldn't have done, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Josh. And lastly, where can we find you?
So I'm on Instagram. I don't even know my handle. I think it's JA Cern 24. Potentially,
I'll also put that in the description.
JA Cern 24. I'm on Facebook. I did. So probably around this time last year, I did a Facebook Live. It's like a 30-minute video on there, where I kind of did this. It was just like, I went through a lot. I'm still going through a lot. How can I help somebody not end up like me, or worse? So I kind of threw that out there, and just ever since then, I just a little bit more and more. I would consider mine pretty elementary compared to what you're doing. But I think as a team, in whatever you're doing, Joe Rogan's podcast, right? He's got Elon Musk on there. He's got all these people that come on to his podcast. Joe has his message, the other person has their message, and they just kind of talk it out. And that's ultimately what I think needs to happen for me, is just to be somebody that somebody can come to, or I can say, I've got the perfect person. Shan, help me out. This person needs help, or where can we get this guy some help, or this gal some help, whatever the case is.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Thanks again. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep in touch.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Of course.